your StreamYard? Hello, we are live. Welcome, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome back. I hope you guys missed me from my LinkedIn lives on Friday mornings. You guys, I am so excited today. This is our very first interview series. As you know, for the last few months, you've just been hearing me blabber, but I thought, what better way to incorporate people into my little series here than Women's History Month? And we are kicking off with a longtime friend and person with a great name, Lauren Musto. She is a VP in the communications world in biotech, and we've known each other for a long time. And I'm really excited because today, for this series, I really wanted to talk about how do people build an audience. You know, we've given you a lot of tools about what to say, where to say it, how to say it, and that's great, but you don't want to be talking into a vacuum. And Lauren has a LinkedIn top voice designation, so clearly she has figured out how to build an audience. So I'm going to have her introduce herself, give a little background on her story, and feel free to pop any questions in the chat if you guys have anything for her. But yeah, we want to just hear a little bit about building your audience, but give us the background on you and anything you think we should know.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on, Lauren. I'm really excited to chat with you on all things personal branding and agreed, you have great taste in name, clearly. But background on me, I've been in healthcare, biotech communications predominantly for almost 20 years now. I hate to admit that number is encroaching on me. Predominantly in oncology and rare diseases. And I've been really fortunate to have been given a lot of different opportunities and been responsible for, product communications, internal comms, social, branding, community relations. And I've done it for a host of different sized organizations from kind of, the 50, 60 person post startup all the way up to, the big pharma, 110,000 people around the world. And it's really interesting, when you pop to these different types of companies and you learn so much about communications and the science and everything that's going on. So it's been a very interesting career thus far. And I think, today in my role, I work for a company called Codexis. We're an enzyme engineering company. And it's a really interesting story. It is outside that traditional biotech that I am comfortable in. So I'm definitely stretching a little bit in this role, but it's a really cool story. And, having the ability to take that science and translate it into something that's understandable, but for a host of audiences, right? So we're talking with investors and we're talking with prospective customers or business partners and employees and the media. What I love about comms is taking that singular story and translating it to a host of different audiences and how you change those words on the page, so to speak. And I think sometimes too with personal branding, it's very much the same exercise. It's just, we're the story and it's our perspective that we're trying to translate for different audiences. So it's been a whirlwind for sure.
Oh, that's awesome. And I think so that is one question in all my LinkedIn tutorials that I get is, how do I appeal to different audiences? And that's why I thought you were a perfect person, because in the biotech world, we do have a lot of different audiences. Like you said, investors and employers and patients and the media. In your 20, I don't want to say 20 year, almost 20 year career.
20.
I get it. Me too. What have you found that works well on a platform like LinkedIn to appeal to different audiences? How do you turn that content into something that appeals to that very multifaceted audiences? Because if you think about it, the scientists really know the nitty gritty, and there's a lot of scientists on LinkedIn, but we might be trying to appeal to employees that really, maybe just their skill set is something completely different. Maybe they're in the finance world and they don't really care about the nitty gritty science. They just care about a great company. How do you find that balance? Because I think that's a question I get a lot is like, our company does a lot of things and we have a lot of stakeholders. So how do you find that balance for companies, especially?
So from a company perspective, I think what's effective is to figure out who your primary audience is, per outlet. So, for example, generally speaking, LinkedIn, we're usually targeting our employees or prospective employees. It's more of that high level corporate story, especially in biotech with social across the board. You need to be very careful in what you're saying. We don't want to be making claims or anything like that. So you're talking
Exactly.
high level about the work that you do, the science that you do. And usually it's that employee audience to garner, interest at perspective, potentially joining the company. Twitter, just past experience, tons of investors, the financial communities
Yeah.
on there. They're watching trends. They're chatting. The
Media.
conversations that happen there are crazy, and it's more word based. It's quick. It's pithy. It's this is the update. This is what's happening. Here's the link to the stream, etc. And then you have things like Instagram, which could be very patient focused. And if you
Yeah.
have a unbranded patient campaign, that's a great place because it's very visual, it's very engaging, it's softer. So it's really about who do you want to target at each platform and crafting your messaging so that it's hitting the right tone across the board. And I think a lot of times in the corporate world, you'll have an announcement, but then, and you do this work and you've done it, we partnered on this in the past too,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
it's this is the announcement and how do we want to say it on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on
Yep.
Facebook, whatever your platform may be. And it's the same announcement, it's the same news, but you're going to position it very differently. You might have different images or graphics or videos to go along with it as well.
Yeah, the call to action is an easy place that you can change up the language. Okay, for an investor, send us an email to learn more. For patients, stay tuned.
Mm-hmm.
So thinking about the call to action too. So
Mm-hmm.
how about you in your personal brand? Because what I noticed, you have such a cultivated this beautiful personal brand, and you have a myriad of experience on, especially on LinkedIn. I'm admittedly don't do too much on other platforms, like
Mm-hmm.
personally. So tell us what platforms you're on and how you kind of cultivated this multifaceted brand. Because what I noticed I like about your following you is I do get to see a little bit of your kids sometimes and
Mm-hmm.
your dogs and you working in your car and stuff like that. But I also very much know you are my go-to comms expert in biotech. So how do you do that? How do you cultivate those kind of like multifaceted personalities? Because I know that that's another big question. People ask it for their company and themselves.
Yeah. So I think on the personal front, we get, broadly speaking, and I can speak from my experience, but you can get very like worked up of what do I post, and I have to sound smart,
Yeah.
and I have to add value, and all those things are true, right? You don't want to be posting
Fluff.
random thought streams that are happening that happen in my life on a daily basis.
Leave that for Twitter.
Yeah,
No.
right. But it's also it's where you can provide the value, but it's mixing it up as well. And I think for me, I try when I am posting the personal things, you know, it's it's also tying it back to something that is business related. So for example, I
Exactly.
remember I got a huge response a couple months ago on Halloween. Actually, I was picking my
Oh,
kids up early from school because they're like, we have to start trick or treating, like we've
oh
got
my
to get
God.
to Papa's house, which is where we do our route from. And so it's like, okay, I will pick you up today instead of taking the bus. And I'm sitting there in the car in a line, 50 cars deep.
Yes.
And it's just, I'm inspired in that moment, but it's tying it back to the fact that I have a very wonderful employer. I have, a flexible hybrid schedule from an office, home office perspective. And I'm taking calls, waiting in the pickup line, and then the kids get in and we go home and I'm totally flexible.
Great.
So I was able to tie it back in. And then yes, my
Heck
favorite
yeah.
coworkers are my pups. Um, and they do
Yeah.
keep me company during the
Oh yeah.
day. But I think the other piece is I try really hard not to force anything. I think we get also caught up in the fact that I have to post something every day or every other day. Like there's this cadence that has to happen. And I find it so much better to write when I'm inspired or something comes to mind. But that also doesn't mean I post it at that moment either. I
Right.
might like something might come to mind and I can at least get it on paper, and then I might want to fine tune it or I might want to edit it. And, my stream of conscious isn't always the most eloquent version of
Yeah.
Lauren, but the thought is there.
Just Lauren too.
So there's some self editing that has to happen
Yeah. Yeah.
as well. And I think the other piece that I would highlight, and this has been successful for me, a lot of times it isn't that you have to come up um, with a post yourself, but you can add value in the comment section. And we need to think of
Yes.
social media as being social. So you want to be able, if you see something and you have a perspective on it, add to the conversation. And I find a lot of times when you do that and you are providing value, and it's not just a, oh, great post,
Congrats.
Lauren,
I know.
bravo, there's something that you're contributing to the conversation. You have then all these people might be checking out your profile, or they might be connecting with you or following you.
Exactly.
I think especially if you're a business owner, you're trying to build your own either consultancy or small business. I know you could speak to this certainly. When you do that, people are like, oh, Lauren has a business and she does communications coaching or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
You can build a lot of interest and audience and even customers that way.
Yeah. No, it's true. And you guys, we did not plan this conversation at all because you just hit on two posts that I just did in the most recent time.
Oh, really?
So either subconsciously you were following me, or we are both just really good at our jobs, which is what I
We're
think
gonna
it is.
go with that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I just posted about inspiration. This is exactly what you're saying is, do not post if you're not inspired, because that's inauthentic and
Mm-hmm.
people are just going to read right through it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a really good point about like taking a beat when you have an inspiration. You can kind of tell sometimes when someone really hasn't thought it through and you're like, I see where they're going. They probably just needed some personal editing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I forget what the other thing was, but yeah, we're definitely in agreement on that. So you've built this audience. How did you earn that top voice? Did you know you were gonna be nominated or elected, or how does that work? I feel like people want to know.
It has to do with the conversations, and I think the biggest thing for me that you may have seen. Oh, and this is another great way to just build your personal brand too, without having to do these super long form posts. There are these I forget what they're called, but they're curated articles basically. So LinkedIn will put,
Yes.
you know, top 8 ways to build a personal brand, right? And they might have 8 steps there. And then you can add your own perspective to it.
Yep.
So there might be a snippet on, taking a beat or on posting straight away or sticking to a specific schedule. And then you can add a little flavor to it.
Yep.
And then from there, that comment that you have will show up in your followings feed, where it will
That's
say,
so cool.
Lauren contributed to this article on this, and here's your blip. And then when people engage with that, that
That's
ups
so cool.
your social credibility, so to speak. I think
So,
I'm not
yep.
the expert in this. And so that's how you can go, another way you can go about earning that badge. I mean, you want to be posting your own content for sure, but I'll be the first to admit I do not post all the time.
That's
I
okay.
definitely
Yeah.
post when I'm inspired, and it's a mix of business, and I post a lot of lifestyle, like a
Yeah.
working home life balance type stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
um
Because that's you. That's your personal brand,
mhm, yeah,
and
and
that's
I think,
that's what we want.
and on the personal brand side too, the other thing is, and I think it's important to recognize this, is that you're more than your job and your work. And it's like all that is
Yep.
you contributes to the perspective that you have. Um, and I think if you look across platforms, I mean, I mostly post on LinkedIn. I view that as a
Okay. Yeah.
professional growth and networking platform. I have an Instagram account. It's for my kids and my dogs. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have Facebook, and it's great to catch up with people, that are living. We moved away from our hometowns. We don't live in the Boston area anymore. And it's a great way to stay connected with family and
Yeah.
friends. But though it's more in the personal realm of things, but across the board, you will see me talking. You will know that I'm a huge sports fan, Boston sports fan. And I think there's tons of lessons for business and personal that can be found in athletics. You will see me
Oh
post
yeah.
about that. Um,
She's a Patriots fan, you guys,
I'm
so
a
you
Patriots
can
fan. Tommy
see where that's
forever.
going.
Tommy forever. Sorry. Um, I love my kids. I am an athletic mom or a sports mom, and I will cart my
Love
kids all
that.
over the place. You'll see that. I am an unashamed wine snob. You will see that on my feeds. I am obsessed with leadership development, and you'll see, the books and the posts and the recommendations.
Yeah, I
It's
love
not
that.
just communications. It's me, it's
It's
bigger.
the whole package,
It's the
and I
whole
think that's
package.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's also not that it's about, looks per se, but I'm if I'm on a video call, I have these glasses on. In real life, I don't. But there are people that I met virtually for the first time or only knew virtually. And
In
then I
real
met
life,
them in
yeah.
person. They're like, something's different. And it's because I don't have my glasses on because I have 20 years of experience now and I need glasses to be able to see the screen clearly and not get eye
Exactly.
strain. So